What's up? You're watching Poot's Garage. This week we're gonna tackle the front end of this Jeep. So last video we did, we took apart that rear differential, we drained it out just to find out it had an open differential. It was supposed to have a locker, so we ended up just welding it. So make sure you go and check out that video. But for now, we're gonna go and take care of this front one now. So I've got a list of parts we're gonna throw in here, and then hopefully make some improvements. And I don't know, we're just gonna see what happens. I'm kind of excited, trying to get this little beater Jeep in shape, still keeping things under budget. This is gonna be a budget build. This is trying to keep things as cheap as possible. So that's where we're going. So the first thing we're gonna throw on are these lower control arm drop brackets. These are big old gnarly buggers. They're built really decent though. I think, if I remember right, these are the Max Speeding X, what the heck's it called? Hold on. Max Speeding Rods brand. They're building a lot of really cheap stuff. You can find them on Amazon and I don't know, wherever else. But relatively cheap. These brackets were only, I want to say 80 bucks, maybe 90 bucks for everything. It comes with obviously both sides. So you have the main drop bracket. Then this is kind of a brace that goes on the back of it. And then it has these guys here, which are kind of go up to the upper location. And then it comes with a whole bunch of hardware and bushings and stuff, so it's pretty good, pretty decent looking kit. The metal seems pretty good, probably 3/16 steel. I think it'll work out just fine. Now, I'm not a big fan of these drop brackets just because they look goofy, they hang real low, but it's gonna correct our control arm geometry a little bit, which is I think gonna make this thing a lot better. So then once we get that all taken care of, then we're gonna install this new steering kit. This is also the Max Speeding Rods brand. Max Speeding? I don't know how to say that. I don't even know what that name means. It's weird. But this is their brand of, it's crossover steering now, and it's actually extremely heavy duty. I was really surprised. I thought these would be a lot smaller than they are. The rod ends are probably a little on the weak side, I'm guessing. I don't know. They got a lot of beef to them though, so I think this thing's gonna work out just fine. Funny thing is, the sticker that comes on this is probably the nicest sticker I've ever seen in my life. It's like pretty much an emblem. It's kind of cool though. And obviously, these come with a whole bunch of hardware too. This kit here, they sell for about $180, which is really cheap compared to all the other bigger name brand steering kits. But since we're doing budget build on this, we're trying to use the cheaper parts, and I think this is gonna work out just fine for the price. This might be a good buy. And this is what we're working on. This is a 1995, I think, Jeep Cherokee XJ. I bought this, it was rolled. The roof was completely like folded up. It had flopped on one side and then flipped around and flopped on the other side. So it was kind of a mess, but we straightened it out enough to get a windshield back in it. So we are kind of just going through a whole bunch of stuff on this rig. So check out the previous video of me actually straightening this thing out. That was a lot of work. I really don't want to have to ever do that again. There's not a straight panel or a gap that's correct on this thing anymore, but it's great for just a budget wheeler that we can beat on. I mean, look at them rocker panels. But this is what we're going to be working on. These control arms, I don't know if it looks as bad on camera as it does in person. To me, the angle of these arms is so extreme, it's giving me issues. You can see the lower there, upper there, they're at an extreme angle downward. Now the problem that gives you in the ride is, like, especially on the faster stuff, when you hit things coming kind of from the front, all that is being transmitted directly into the control arm, like directly, because this thing's at such an angle. That force is going straight into the control arm, which is going straight into the body, and it makes it extremely rough. All that force is just bang. So what you need though is when something hits like that, you want the tire to go up, not straight back. So if these control arms were at a flatter angle, it would actually allow that tire to go up instead of like wanting to be forced straight into the straight control arm. This thing didn't handle too bad at the high speed stuff. Maybe the little washboardy stuff, it was like really blah, 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 but I don't know if that was because of this or not. The big stuff it handled okay, but one big thing I did notice, we're just gonna lean back so we can get a better view, is when I was coming down a really steep slope, and this front axle was actually hanging down, and I'm trying to like drop it down a ledge, and if that front tire hit something like a rock that was coming at it, this axle actually acted like it wanted to fold under, like it wanted to just keep swinging because that control arm angle is so extreme. And then you got to imagine when that axle is dropped out another, 6 inches, it's at even more of an angle. So with those control arms being so far down, that axle actually wants to go under instead of up. So that's what we're going to try and avoid. Yeah, it hit a couple little, you could definitely feel it. It felt a little sketchy when the first time I took this out and tried things. So yeah, I'm going to try these control arm brackets and see if that fixes it. And the steering isn't a super critical thing. The main reason I'm doing that is because these stock tie rods here are so flimsy. Like you can just see how much they deflect just hitting it. Well, you probably can't because I'm shaking the camera everywhere. But I have folded one of these tie rods and it went bloop, turned into a big old taco. So these little tie rods are very dinky. They are very small. This is probably, I don't know, is that even an inch right there? Maybe. So we're gonna upgrade that and we're gonna do the crossover steering, which gets rid of the Y setup where this rod goes to the pitman arm and the tie rod actually connects to the middle of that one. Supposedly this is supposed to be a little bit better style for, I don't know, bump steer and stuff like that. But just having a simple crossover steering, I don't know, it's a little more simple to me and it's super strong. You're putting the force of one wheel directly to the other wheel. So they're connected solid, not like this where it has this joint here that's gonna try and push this one up and this joint's gonna wanna do weird thing. Yeah, it gets everything in straight angles. Works a lot better, in my opinion. Might not be the best for like a daily street-driven rig, especially with those Heim joints on the end like that. Those aren't super good on street because they get worn out and loose real easy, I believe. Not like a tie rod end, but we're just gonna go with it. Did I ever mention somebody put some fancy brake rotors on this? Look at them things. Kind of nice looking. Weird thing about this is these brakes feel like they're dragging hard. I don't know if it's the brakes. It's got to be the brakes. I don't know why I'd be dragging so hard. Front brakes are definitely tight. I don't know why. I don't think it's the front drive shaft or anything like that. It should be in two-wheel drive. But for whatever reason, something is a little tight. Like you can't just easily spin it. Barely move it. And I did notice this this wheel bearing has just a little bit of play. I'm not too worried about it. We'll let it ride. You can see the extreme angle of them control arms in there. Not sure how far I'm gonna go. I think I'm pretty much gonna have to remove the whole axle just to give me enough clearance to really get things in there and just give me lots of room to work and then reposition the axle. This whole axle should come forward a little bit. Yeah, things should line up. One thing I forgot to do, I wanted to measure my caster beforehand, just out of curiosity. Maybe I'll do it while it's just free hanging just to see how much of a difference it makes. But yeah, it's about all we'll do on that, I guess. But that's not going to be an accurate measurement because the axle's going to be hanging down. So I guess I gotta take the shocks off, kind of just start unbolting things and see where we go. Got the front end pretty much apart. I think as far as we need to go, all the control arms are disconnected from the axle. I guess I do have to take the upper end off the control arm. On the uppers still, they're just kind of hanging there. But yeah, you can see everything's loose. I've seen a lot of bad things going on in here. I can definitely see where some of my noises and stuff were that I was having. I had some pretty gnarly like clunking and stuff like that when I was testing this thing out, and I can kind of see. Okay, so I can see like I got a bushing that's completely loose. You can see, I don't know if it's hard to tell there, but these holes are hogged out. They're oblong. So they put like bolts that were too small in this, and then they weren't tight, so things were, you know, moving around a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here, and yeah, it's kind of interesting. But other than that, I mean, nothing's really broken, so it should be okay. Yeah, I just noticed that. That's concerning, having this loose bushing here. I'll have to look into that a little bit more, see what I can do about that. Maybe even just tack weld it back in there or something. But at this point, I just got to drop those upper control arms out of their upper spots, and then I can start putting those new brackets in and kind of start figuring out how to get this thing back together. I have a feeling I'm probably going to go shopping for some new bolts, get the proper size bolts for these uppers that were in the wrong spots and different things. So we'll take care of a lot of that stuff. I tapped that bushing out of the axle there. It came right out with a hammer pretty much. Should be a little harder than that, but I remembered that I have this old Daystar bushing kit this fits all the stock control arm locations to kind of stiffen things up in a Cherokee. And so I'm gonna rob the one that I need for that location, and then I might even do the other upper also, just to replace it so they match, and then I'll kind of be all done up here. And I was never going to use this kit for anything else, so let's just use it. And then so I have to reuse the factory shell here, so I've taken all the rubber out as best I can. I'm gonna hit it with a torch net next and scrape it out, get the rest of that gunk out of there, and then we pretty much just lube up our polyurethane, slide it in there. I got the new sleeves. There's a little like thrust washer on that side. The one on the other side of the axle there doesn't use a thrust washer. I think I'm actually supposed to have a metal washer that I don't have anymore, but I'm sure we can make something else work. Woo, it stinks. Nothing like burning rubber. Have to get it soft enough and just scrape it out, so I don't have to let it just completely burn. I had to open the garage door. Well, this is cool. I got polyurethane on the top mounts now. I didn't plan on doing that, but it all worked out. I happen to have the parts, so hey, budget build, we're doing it. I don't know if those will be the best for flex and whatnot. I think so, because the top joints on those arms have an actual, like, I don't know, like a Heim type joint on there, so bottom should be able to stay stiff and not hinder too much flex. So yeah, that'll be kind of neat. I think that'll help some stuff out. So I got everything apart on this Jeep now. We got both the upper and lower control arms completely pulled off. We're basically ready to put brackets up here that we need to do. I just kind of wanted to go over some stuff, like everything that I have found wrong, because this thing has kind of been a mess. It's been kind of a nightmare, really. So on top of, I don't know, just all the grime and grunge, but like we got a lot of things like, so the upper control arm bolts were super small. You can see how floppy they are. They used something way too small. They put standard bolts in here, grade 8, which is nice, but these are supposed to be metric, so they can get a little bit bigger. You can go up a size, but these are just way too small to begin with. That's kind of crazy. And so I found tons of nuts and bolts that are just like loose, barely tightened. So I think that's where a lot of my clunking was coming from. We had this bushing here. The sleeve was actually loose in its bracket, so that was moving. This upper mount here had this bolt in here, which was super loose. It wasn't even tight. If I can get to zoom in here, focus. As you can see, that bolt is wore out from it slopping around in that hole. It's been getting banged around for a while, so that was definitely an issue. And then because that bolt was loose, you can see how much it hogged out our holes here. These things are all out of whack. Kind of crazy. It's crazy though, it almost looks like somebody cut those out. You know what? I bet somebody did. Somebody actually looks like they cut those out at an angle. They were trying to get some adjustability out of them or something. It looks like they rammed a drill bit in there sideways, which is kind of crazy. So that's not ideal. I don't like that at all, to be honest. So whatever, we got that going on for us. But then I also noticed like this end here was loose. So that's getting clunking from the threads being loose there. As you can probably see, the end rotates. That jam nut's supposed to be tight. It wasn't. Lots of mismatched bolts going in here. Even the lower arms are using some standard bolts. These are pretty big though. You're not going to break those ones, so that's decent. These are the factory metric size here, so that wasn't too bad. But you know, we had wore out bushings on the top, so we got that taken care of. So we're making a lot of improvements here, basically just nuts and bolts that were way wrong on this and loose, and just I think this front end's gonna be nice and tight now. And then we do have to figure out, so like this guy here, it's got a deal inside this cup that you can adjust your caster with. This side was loose, And judging by the witness marks, I'm pretty sure this was actually moving off-road as well. Even though the bolt was tight, it was still probably sliding. The other side was actually tight, because what you're supposed to do is, say if it was, that's where you needed it, you would tighten those bolts on the back side to hold it there. But then when you slide it out, you would loosen those nuts, adjust it where you need it, but then you were actually supposed to put shims inside in that little gap there. You would put shims in there just to keep it from wanting to slide back. Obviously they didn't do that, so all sorts of little things like that. So we're gonna have this thing all tightened up and ready to go. Update. So I ran to the store and I bought a bunch of hardware. I bought some metric stuff, but man, the metric is expensive. So I got these. These will be for the upper control arms. Those fit great. Expensive. Whew. So the thing is, the metric M10 is just slightly bigger than the standard size you can fit in there. So we're gonna go with the metric on that. They didn't really have the metric lower bolts I needed, so I got grade 8. But the thing is, these grade 8s, 9/16, are actually just a hair bigger than the factory ones, and they fit in the holes. So this is actually better in my book, and plus they're a heck of a lot cheaper. So this is really all I needed. But since my local store sells hardware by the pound, this is, what is it, $6.99 a pound for grade 8. You know, I ended up buying, I just grabbed handfuls of random stuff and throw them in the drawer for later. So I'll have to figure out exactly how much my costs are, because I am keeping track of how much this Jeep is costing, even every nut and bolt I buy. So we'll have to add that to the price. This metric is kind of expensive. Another update. Whew, man, I'm getting my butt kicked under here. So you can see we got the brackets kind of in there. The upper control arm is kind of in. Those big brackets in front are kind of tight. I'm working on getting this up there. Pop myself in the face with this bracket trying to get it fit in there. Jeez, give me a headache. I had to take a breather after that one. But we're getting there. Everything's kind of fitting. Not the greatest, but it's working. Trying to fight this axle because it's just floating on this floor jack right now and trying to get control arm bolts lined up. It's a pain in the butt, not gonna lie. You can see our brackets are back there. You can see how we got the bracket coming down that supports it, and then it's just dropping everything downward. Oh man, these angles are gonna look so much better on these control arms though. Our new bushings don't work the greatest with the aftermarket control arms. I think the factory one, if I remember right, actually comes up and over, and it really like encapsulates this whole area. These aftermarket ones are real small, and so like this bushing here, this ring that just kind of acts as a thrust washer, is basically loose around the hole that way. So the only thing it's actually contacting is back here. Not the greatest, but whatever, it's gonna work. It'll work fine for now. All right, we got the passenger side done. These brackets are basically permanently installed. The only thing that's loose really is the lower control arm. I'm gonna leave that one loose just in case. I don't know, give you a little bit of wiggle room, I guess. I can loosen those up too if I need to wiggle. But I'm also leaving this thing with as far back caster as possible. So this will be like as negative caster as possible. And then once I get it on the ground, I'll measure caster and see if we need more. And then it should be fairly easy to just basically loosen these and slide them forward, shim them, and then we'll have caster. And if I really need more than that, then we got to go up to the upper control arms and shorten those. But hopefully we don't have to dig into those, because those will probably be a pain in the butt to get out later. Anyways, this side's pretty much done. Doesn't look too bad. I can dig that. Obviously I don't have the spring in yet, because I gotta fight this side next. Oh man, these brackets are a pain. So we're gonna do this side next, and probably just gonna show you when it's done or later on, because I'm getting tired and I'm just gonna work as much as I can until bedtime. We got springs and shocks back in, but if you can tell, that spring looks awfully goofy. So I got my little angle gauge on there. I'm reading about 0.8, 0.7 positive caster right now, but the driveway is sloped about 1/2 degree also, so plus this front end's probably still sitting a little bit high, even though the weight's on springs, it's gonna come down. We're pretty much 0 caster right now, which is not good. We can't have that at all. Which is why our spring is curved like that. So if we bring that caster back, it should straighten that spring out a little bit too. Whew, man, that's interesting. And if that little gap down there on that lower control arm isn't enough, then we're going to be shortening up those upper control arms to get it to curl back even more. Yeah, we got some adjustments to make, I think. But for now, I'm just happy that the springs go back in, shocks go in. It's kind of amazing. This axle will drop all the way to the ground now. It'll just keep going so that the control arms are not the binding factor anymore, which is kind of cool. So I aligned a little bit. I'm not going crazy because I kind of just want to get this thing out of the garage for the, this is the end of my weekend and I'm kind of out of time. So I'm just trying to get things back together. But I did move the control arms forward as much as I can using the adjusters on the back side. Now, if I lose those adjusters completely and get rid of them and figure out another way to attach these two brackets together, then I can get a few more degrees of caster. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave it kind of where it's sitting. And you can see our spring has still got a gnarly arch to it. Is probably next weekend we'll pull this front control arms off and shorten them and see if we can't get this whole axle to twist up or twist back and then get what we need. We have, I'm guessing, about 2 degrees of caster, which is way not enough. You want, I don't know, anywhere between 4 to 6. Closer to 6 seems to be more common nowadays. So I want to definitely get a lot more caster out of that. So we'll shorten up them control arms quite a bit. And we got a lot of room to go, so we should be okay. But I'm not going to bore you with that much. So that's where we're going to end this video. This is the lower control arm brackets installed. Everything is back together and pretty much ready to go. Next video, we're going to be installing the new steering. So I'm going to rip this steering I just installed back off next weekend and install our crossover steering. So that'll be cool. Then we'll take care of alignment issues. We can do a full alignment at that time, really get this thing dialed in. So that's that. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.